Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I hope everyone is doing okay and can hear me fine. I would add other members to the call, but before that, I want to thank all of you for attending 12 sessions, and this is the bonus session. We are still deciding that whether to complete well architected into one track or two. Probably it will be two tracks. So let's see how we progress today, and based on that, we would decide to go for the next session. So thanks everyone, and hopefully everyone is enjoying. Just and let me add who is all with me today. So I have Kapil with me, and then we have Prasad, and we have Parna. So four of us are here. Kapil and I would be going through the session, and Parna and Prasad would be there for some time. But yeah, we are all happy to see you all again, and hopefully you would be enjoying and learning something new today from Well Architected. And as we are nearing to the 12 week, any want to share anything? Prasad, Kapil, Parna, anything like we completed 12 weeks and on in the bonus track. Anything you want to add?
No, all I would say is that let's continue engaging on the Discord channel. Thank you all for joining, and more ideas will welcome for the next batch.
Makes sense.
So anything that you can let us know that how we can improve, or any feedback that you have, yeah, feel free to share.
I'll say I'll appreciate all the consistency. I'm seeing some regular faces, like they are pretty much consistent, and that's I think
Exactly.
most important thing in terms of being a solution architect. So I'll appreciate that and keep your feedback flowing. It's great to see you connecting on the LinkedIn, sharing the post, and like sharing your achievements that you have passed the certificates. So all feels great. Thank you for engagement.
Yeah, from my side, the same too. Thank you all for keeping on coming back to us. That keeps us going every week after week and keeps us motivated. And even though you have completed certifications, that doesn't mean you have to stop coming back. There is always a scope to learn. This is every session is just a drop in the ocean of the huge AWS landscape that we have. So keep coming back, add to your knowledge, share with others, and thank you again. And keep reading blogs, reading white papers, and share in the Discord channel as well as on the LinkedIn group. Yeah, that's about
Yeah,
from me.
Discord is a good way to communicate. Even if we have finished 12 week, but there is so much to learn and share. So feel free to share there. Thanks everyone, and we will get started with today's session. I want to talk about one more thing before we move forward, and I want to ask with you, all of you who have been into this sessions, that which of the BeSA session is your favorite so far? What you like the most? What specific topic you have enjoyed the most? So let me know what you have enjoyed the best from the 12 sessions. I agree 12 session had different way of delivering thing and they had different content, but probably something which was, let's say, very confusing, and you realize that okay, after this session I have got the best idea of all these things. Serverless, VPC, all sessions, thank you for that. Networking, I agree. Networking is not an easy topic, and if you are not coming from infrastructure background, networking can be daunting. Containers and serverless, Abhijit, that is a good one. Yeah, I like that too. All sessions. Thank you, Anupama. And yeah, it's not easy to pick because every session and every individual had their own way of delivering thing, and we want to diversify as much as we could. And a lot of people helped us. Nicole, Sharik, Richard, Remy, all of them helped us. And yeah, that's it. I love the analogies. Good to hear that. Watchman session. It was interesting. Networking and security, networking, container, the great firewall. I agree. Yeah, there are a lot of things on the security level. First session introduced to cloud computing and the analogies used through of the home. Okay, yeah, that is a good one. Yeah, and Nicole used very nice analogies in that session. If you haven't watched, watch first session in which Sharik was asking tricky question to Parna. Yeah, it was an interesting session, Pawan. Sharik has its own peculiar way of asking question, and yeah, I enjoy hearing those conversations. That's true. The introduction, all sessions were informative. That's good to hear. So hopefully that you are enjoying and learning something new, and feel free to share feedback so that we can improve upon it. Now, love the posters. Thank you for that. Yeah, I've thought that let's create posters in a little bit more intrigued way So that's why I started creating it, and it was not intention initially, but once I started creating one, I thought let's create the same theme of movies. And if you have any other themes to suggest for the next upcoming posters, let me know, and we'd be happy to explain, happy to incorporate it. Shouldn't be the problem. The role play was teaching, a way of teaching. I agree on that, Abhijit. That was a new thing, and that was coined by Sharik. He came with the idea of role playing, and that's how we started working on it, and then move forward from there. Poster was very innovative. Innovative. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that. Good, you are at least paying attention there. Let's start with this architectural session now. So we had discussed on the very first day that this is what our architecture is looking like. I'm talking about a company called Any Company. They migrated their workload, and their migrated workload looks like this, where they have a web server, a database server running independently, being connected to internet, and now they are able to serve the customers. So will this work? Yes, it would work. It's not a problematic solution, it is still a workable solution. But if I ask the question, is this well architected? Probably I would say it is not a well architected solution purely designed for cloud based workload. So we may need to fine tune it, and this is where your skills as a solution architect comes into picture. This is a skill where you are consulting skills comes into picture. So we'll try to discuss all these things as we move forward. And I let Kapil, so this the session is consider that this is a discussion not between two customers now, or customer or individual. Now it is a discussion between two AWS professionals who are looking into architecture and trying to find out how we can make it well architected. So it will be more on a technical side rather than on a customer and individual side. So let's go ahead and move forward with that. Welcome, Kapil. So let's start with this, and let me know when I have to move slides, and then we will keep moving forward. Just to set a stage, this is the architecture, and let's say you have to get started. Now, the challenge you may have that where should I start? Because there are so many things you could improve upon, right? That's the thought, Kapil, right? There are so many things we could improve.
So the architecture that you have shown before is like, this is something that when you went in a job and you get this workload or this template, now you will be thinking backwards what I can improve and where I can improve. There is opportunity to learn, opportunity to improve, opportunity to optimize, and you will be not looking at something that how it's supposed to work, but you will be also like, how I'm going to scale this solution, what are the security implications, how I'm going to react in particular scenario when something fails, how I'm going to adopt to new technologies. So all those question is obviously you should be asking, and you should be confused at that time. You should be questioning yourself that what I should do next to improve this further. So exactly to solve this problem, AWS come with AWS well architected framework, and what that means, what where it's come from. So like you understand the technology and tools, and since the cloud has evolved, lot of AWS experts work with the partner day-to-day basis, and they understand their workload, a different work stream, different use cases, and they have made the trade-off. They have went with that solution, that understanding in the production, learned from failure, and like these lesson learned that we have from this time period. I think it was launched in 2006, basically the cloud concept, and then from I think it took 6 to 7 years and we launched well architected framework in 2015. And since that, all the learnings we are documenting, and it's come as a well architected framework. So lot of learning, lot of solution architect experimenting, learning from different customer space, different tools, technology, different workload, different industries, and they have come and prepare a kind of white paper. Basically, it's set of best practices as guidelines how you should be designing going forward.
Makes
Does that
sense.
make sense?
And if you look at the AWS landscape, I would say 90% of AWS services are based on the customer feedback. Same applies here. We had an outage around 2012, I guess, into AWS environment, but some customers were not affected at all from that. And why they were not affected? Because they have designed the solution in that manner that it didn't get any problem at all. So we thought, why don't we learn this thing and then find it a better way to share with other customers so they get also get benefited. So that is what a well architected framework. It's a culmination of best practices across industry, across different customer, across AWS teams, and that's what we have put it into the well architected framework, right?
So,
Now,
well-architected framework, if like just to give you the definition, so AWS well-architected framework helps you understand the pros and cons of the decision you make while building system on the AWS by using the framework. It's like basically you will be implementing the lesson learned and other things that you have learned here. But we are not limited to only the white paper or well-architected framework that we have. We have evolved this with the time, and we have AWS lenses also. What lenses is using these best practices that we have is implementing for particular domain. For example, you wanted to implement machine learning models. You want to implement, for example, high computing systems. So these white papers, again, AWS architects has used and curated industry best practices in particular domain. Also, if you go one step further and try to implement specific use cases, for example, you want to implement DR strategy, okay, then there is a guidance paper on that. So it's evaluation. You need to look at extension of well-architected framework, the lenses and the guidance, and these are some kind of white papers. So even though like Ashish hates it, but I'll emphasize to go and read white papers as much as you can.
yeah. So I do not hate it, Kapil, but I'll put it like that. I'm not mentally prepared to read 600 pages. But yeah, this is something which everyone should start reading. If you are looking for an interview or a solution to be deployed, probably this is a good place to get started, what white papers are. So just to give a context here, if you are looking to just get started, so this well architected framework gives you the baseline, which you can compare your architecture against it. And then if you are having any industry specific requirement, let's say I have built a serverless workload, is it well architected or not? I'm into finance domain, I am well architected or not? So that lenses adds capabilities which are not into the base layer, so it is very industry specific. And then that how we would implement these things, what should be the way of implementation, that comes into guidance. This is how these three structures are there, right, Kapil?
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Nice. Move on. Now, this is what our architecture looks like, and we want to ensure that you get idea of some base terms before we get started, like what is a component, what is a workload, what is architecture, what is a milestone, and what are level of effort. So let's go ahead and move forward. Kapil, you would like to explain these concepts?
Yeah, actually, so once you start, we need to align on the terminology, and this is exactly explained in the white paper as it is. So if you look at, we have the public subnet and it is web server. So it is the smallest unit that you have in your architecture, that is called component. And if you look together, like your BPC, then your private subnet, internet gateway, this is kind of workload that you have. So you need to understand when we are referring or document is referring about the component and workload, then you need to understand how we are talking about. I know that everyone has had that understanding, but I wanted to make everyone's on the same page. Then architecture is considered something that how these components are interacting with each other. So that's where the architects come into the picture. And exactly this diagram is architecture. When it comes to milestone, is like you are ready for your kind of POC, then you went in the dev environment or the production environment. That's basically the different milestones that you will have in your this releasing journey. Level of effort is something that you measure, like small, medium, and large, like what kind of technical difficulties and amount of time that will require something to build. That is kind of level of effort what we mean here. Anything you want to add, Ashish?
Yeah, means so idea here is that we may have architecture, and when we are talking about architecture, this is what is shown into the picture, and that whole thing would be a workload. Like I am running a finance application, or I am running an internal application for attendance of employees or tracking their timesheet. So that is what a workload is. And obviously a workload would be made up of different component. If I say there would be compute component, maybe databases component, maybe there was a networking component. So those are all components. And when you start reviewing those workload, it may not be possible that you complete all review and fix all these things into one single cycle. So you could say, okay, we would start with, let's say, security right now. We would finish security in 1 month time, finish everything, get well architected, and then we move on to the next thing. So this is my milestone I'm looking for, that by this time I would have implemented all the security best practices within my architecture. So that is what we refer as a milestone. So well architected is a journey, it's not a destination. You always have to keep on improving, because best practices are not static, they can change over time. Like 10 years back, if somebody asked best practices, nobody would have thought about serverless at all. But now we have to think about serverless. So milestone is a way for you to put a guidance like, okay, we have to achieve this particular place, and then we move forward from there. So it's a journey, it's not a destination. And level of effort is that how much time you're going to spend in terms of cost, in terms of money, in terms of manpower, because it may happen that you identified issues and you do not have manpower to fix that problem, and you may want to engage third parties for that or a consultant for that. So that is what we mean by level of efforts here. Good thing. Let's go ahead and talk about some general design principle here. General design principle idea is that we want to ensure that this would apply to every workload, regardless of whether it's internal or external, or you're going through a specific type of review or a specific domain. These are just some general principle which applies to everything you do in any architecture. There probably will be no exception. Anything you do will be covered by these general design principles.
So yeah, like when it comes to, and this is not something this needs to be practiced in the cloud, but this principle holds in general when you are trying to run your workload, even if you are trying to run not in AWS, any other cloud or any other on-premise also. So and but these things become popular once you have the flexibility to scale and do the auto scaling and downsizing. So it's become norm now. So if you take the first one, stop guessing your capacity needs. So you don't have to guess it anymore. You have different data points, metrics to understand how and what is need of your workload, and according to that, you will be provisioning your infrastructure or resources. You monitor it. You like created some workload. You see the metrics, and then according to that, you can downgrade and upgrade your resources need. So you don't have to like keep guessing about the capacity. Second point that I'll move is like testing system at scale. So basically, like traditional problem, something is working for me, but it's breaking in a production or um, not expected as it's supposed to work in the production. And the main problem is we never tested those system at the scale. So that is one problem that happens in the production. So what you need to do is, because we have such flexibility, like you can spin up the server or you with the infrastructure as a code, and you can tear down whenever you want, and you are only paying for the resources that you are like for the time period that you are using. So be in a mindset to test your system at production scale. That give you confidence to move to production without any issues.
I want to add one more thing here, Kapil.
Yeah.
Like in traditional environment, it may not be possible for testing everything at production workload level, right? Because the test environment which is given to you in on-prem world would be much smaller than your production environment, and you may not have capabilities to handle thousands of users into that. But cloud gives you that flexibility that you could deploy the test environment which can scale to 10,000 or millions of users. Once you are done with testing, remove everything, and you do not pay a lot of money for that. So cloud gives you that flexibility which we were lacking into our traditional environment, but now you could do that. And one more thing, these design principles are not just for AWS specific workload. Regardless of where you are implementing, whether it is on-prem or a different cloud provider, you still should be able to go ahead and implement most of these principles as we move forward. So that is a generic concept. It is not very specific to AWS. Nowhere we are mentioning that it is AWS specific. It can be implemented in any solution you are building, regardless of technology, regardless of cloud provider.
Exactly. And also, like, you need to think of the cost. Maybe in on-premise, you cannot have a same production grade servers in the test account so that you can try out. So that is also a concern. But cloud things are a little different. So third point, automate, make architectural experiment easier. So this is like another mindset. So you need to be giving the flexibility to developers or all the associates working in your organization to experiment, try out different things. One of the example I will give from the AWS, from the Amazon is think about how to add to carts and suggestion came into the picture. These were initially opposed, but somebody went ahead and experiment with this idea in the production, and that's the culture that you need to build. Even though the like leaders are not aligned, your peers are not aligned with your thought, but if you have production gate system and you have experiment culture, the like the culture you have built, it is like infrastructure as a code. You can spin up the server, you can deploy something, test it out and tear it down. That gives you flexibility to experiment and build a new feature. That's how the add to cart, and not to add to cart exactly, but suggesting that what things you need to buy next, that comes into the picture. And AWS, not AWS, Amazon employee build it by themselves, and then it went into the production. So that's basically the culture of experimentation and how something comes into a live feature.
And
Then,
one more thing I
yeah.
want to add here for the experimentation easier, like think about maybe you are just a startup with two people working and you have the same technology available which is available to Netflix as a customer. They can spin up all the same component which you can also spin up for you. So that is giving you ability to perform experimentation. In old days, what used to happen, let's say I want to deploy a high performance computing cluster, but the cost was too much and I could not afford as being a startup or being a small company. But now in cloud, everyone has the same tools and facilities available to deploy as much as you want. You may have a bright idea on the Friday evening, Monday morning you can come and start experimenting on it. So make sure you leverage those design principles which are mentioned here.
Thank you. Yes. Then allow for evolutionary architecture. So, for example, what we mean evolutionary architecture means like you need to ready for adopting the new set of technology. For example, there is a new ML model is coming. How to basically experiment with the different GPT frameworks or this generative AI features. So you need to have that culture built, that you are ready to try out new things that is coming in the market and try to work backwards, experiment those and try to implement in your business.
Makes sense. Now the
Then
next point is drive
yeah,
architecture using data. Now the good point about cloud is that you could collect data as much as you want, right? You want to collect your customer insight, you want to get information about what are the customer bases people coming from, what geography they are coming from. Previously, because of limited tools available, we were not able to democratize on the data we collected. But now, as we have so much insight available, simple example could be I am monitoring my application and I come to know that in night time I do not have too much traffic. So I can use that information and then perform some auto scaling feature at night, so I do not end up paying that much money for my application. So that data would help you to understand where your customer is coming from. Let's say you have customer coming from a different part of the world and there is a lot of latency you are seeing for them. You could deploy another application set into different region and improve performance, or you could use CloudFront, or you could use some API gateway from regional endpoint. So it depends on how you improve it. So data gives you a way to identify information and then take some action on it, which was technically not possible into traditional infrastructure, but with cloud, you could collect data at n number of places and you can get benefited from it.
improve through game days. I think I love this concept since the cloud become popular. And I'll give you two recommendations to read on this further. If you haven't explored the Netflix white papers on the site reliability engineering, please do explore that. And I think we have definitely named it game days. Netflix is kind of they have built different altogether different mechanism for the site reliability, and they have a concept of chaos monkey. So something goes and tear down a particular system in a given day, and then they try to work backwards how they want to see that how the system is reacting if something happening like this. The same concept is for the game days. If something hurts, do it more often. Until unless you are not testing your production system, you are not testing your DR strategy, then make sure that it is not going to work the day it is required. So test your DR strategy test your production system test your things at the production scale. And if you think like do the experimentation a lot, so that's what we mean by the game days with the different experimentation. Basically, you want
Yeah,
to
for people who do
add
not
anything?
know
Sorry.
much about game days, just to give an example, idea is that let's sit into a room or maybe into whatever locations and try to find out that how my application can break down, and if it happens, how I am going to recover from those type of failure. Simplest could be, let me shut down one of the instance and see how my application react. Is my monitoring tool able to identify that? Can my process identify those failure, and can it take it forward from there and improve my architecture from those input which we got? So it is a intentional, in a controlled manner, failing your application intentionally and then looking for where the complicated systems are, or where there is the weakest link, and we try to improve on that. So intention is good, that we want to achieve a highly resilient architecture, and let's try to mimic an environment where we are intentionally implementing some complication in our system or creating problem in that, and see how my system reacts or how my architecture reacts to it. So that is what a game day is.
And you will be surprised, like organization nowadays plan for once in a day, in a quarter or something like that, to experiment exactly. And like sometimes they go beyond, they just don't do in the control environment, they want to do this in the production environment. That's how Netflix does it. So they really want to see how system is going to react if something happens in the real time. So I'm not saying that go and break your production, but test it
Yeah, don't
out
do
and
that.
do it. Yeah.
And blame it on Ashish and Kapil. Don't do that. Yeah, means it's a controlled, that's why the word I use, controlled way of testing, not like random testing. Good. Makes sense. So all this information which you want to experiment with, what AWS did, they put it together into these 6 things, which is in the 6 pillars. This is the what we call as a well architected framework pillar. So these are 6 pillars which are there into well architected framework, and they are trying to cover the most holistic approach. It's not like it may not be covering every single aspect, but if you look around, they would be able to cover the most important aspect of every application. And regardless of domain, regardless of your workload type, regardless of the technology you are using, this is always going to happen, right? So this is what the 6 pillars of well architected framework are.
Yeah. Let's discuss the operational excellence. So when we talk about the operational excellence players focus on the running and monitoring system and continually improving the process and procedures. Think about, if you haven't heard of the Kaizen. Kaizen is basically talk about the same thing. Do the small increment updates regularly and try to move towards perfection. So a small increment and try to improve day by day. So that's basically the concept of operational excellence and Kaizen. Then we have like, if sorry, yeah, you want to add something?
Yeah, means I want to just add here that these things are a balancing act. What I mean by that, let me give an example. So let's say you said, okay, I am going to improve applications reliability. And for reliability, I have deployed my application into one region and I have created another regional copy of that. So even if region 1 fails, I am able to deliver my component or application from region 2. So you created a more reliable application. But that is going to impact your cost also. It is going to increase your cost, right? Or you said, I would start performing lot of security and I would put down lot of controls on that. I would put encryption. Then that means you are increasing your operational excellence problem too, because now you have to rotate those keys. Now you need to audit who is using those keys. So it is a balancing act, right? So you will find that if you are trying to move forward with lot of performance, you added a huge instance to support your workload. Yes, good. But now your cost is also increased. Or you want to reduce your cost, that may mean performance will also be decreased. So it is a balancing act. It's not like you have to find out and put everything at the top layer. You may want to decide on priorities, and based on those priorities, you would say, hey, maybe in my production environment, reliability is more important for me. I am not worried about cost, but if it is my QA environment, I am okay if it goes down sometime because I want to keep my cost low. So you have to perform a balancing act. Example I give is like when you are selecting a flight to go from a destination A to, let's say, destination B. You may find a flight which is very fast, means which is consuming less time, but its cost is very high. The second flight could be that hey, it goes and takes a stop in between, but the cost is low. So if I am in hurry, I may want to take a direct flight. If I am not in hurry, maybe I am okay to wait 1 hour, 2 hour on an airport and then hop on to another flight. So it is a balancing act. It's not one size fits all. Some priority will differentiate, that your workload in production would have different priority, and maybe your QA workload or testing workload may have a different priority altogether. So it depends. So you need to find a fine balance between all these pillars without affecting your application performance, availability, reliability, and obviously the cost.
Yes.
Great.
Just to add a few points there, as analogy, Ashish, you mentioned, when you think about the security, think about when you are traveling with your family. Then you want to travel with the most secure environment. It's not like you might prefer to have your own car, not going by public transport. That's one way of thinking, even though it's costly, but you are more concerned about the safety of the family. In that way, maybe you have to implement the security that is costly, but you don't want to deal with the data breaches at all. Take the example of what happened to the Snowflake recently, very recent case. They haven't implemented the multi-factor authentication. So small things that is so obvious to implement that people might have overlooked it. So keep in mind, while you are thinking about your workload altogether, keep the mindset comparing these all 6 pillars, basically 5 pillars that is related to your workload, and try to see the balance between operational excellence, security, reliability, and cost optimization and performance efficiency. This also differ from like domain to domain. Maybe a banking is like more secure. That needs to be, even they are moving slow, they need to be secure first. They cannot afford to miss any data breaches. The reliability is important. If there is downtime and people are not able to make the transaction, that's something that is cost them. So these kind of mindset you need to build when you are thinking about workload, building the application in the cloud.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And yeah, I like your example of car and traveling with the family. So yeah, I mean it depends. So sometimes your priorities can change. Maybe you will give more priority to security and maybe operational excellence or maybe cost optimization. It all depends. So that my answer of all depends. It depends. It always true here in this case too. Let's keep moving forward now. To help you to move forward with these type of approach, we have come up with something called a well-architected tool. So well-architected tool is a method by which we are able to provide you a mechanism to look at your workload and say, I am well-architected or not, or if I am not, what are the things I can do to fix this particular problem. So this is referred as a well-architected tool. Now, thing to clarify here, that a lot of time when I talk to customer, they may have an impression that this well-architected tool is going to scan their environment, and if there is any issue, it will identify that, hey, these are the issues, fix it, and you will become well-architected. This is not a scanning tool. This is not a tool which is going into your account, checking your application and saying, are you well architected or not? It is giving you guidance. It is giving you a way to ask a question and probing question, and through that you would improve your application. I'll quickly show this well architected tool in a minute. Kapil, you want to add something here?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to add that consider this as a checklist. So you are going to you have well planned your workload. You understand what needs to be done, and then whatever you have done, you are going to fill the questionnaire. That is basically this tool is all about. They ask the question, you submit it, answering those questions, and it is a like difficult task. We wanted to do this live, but there is so many questions that we cannot fill and proceed. But we will try to give you some quick glimpse of how to fill those and how to get report out of your workload to improve further.
Makes sense. And as we discussed that, this tool gives you an idea on how you could start implementing these solutions within your environment. And let me go ahead and quickly bring that tool so that we can just quickly look into it, and then we will move forward from there. So I'm on my AWS console, and from here I could start my well architected tool. I'll go into it, and within that tool, I would start giving some questions, and that based on that, it will give me the answer. And this is not a static tool in the sense that we keep on improving questions in that, suggestions in that, depending on the industry best practices. So here, once I am into well architected tool, I could see a dashboard on which I would see how many workloads I have defined, what are the risk items associated, what is the medium or high priority risks. All this type of information is available here. How to get started, and you do not have to pay any money to use it. If you are using some lenses, maybe there would be cost, but most of the time well architected tool is free. So I can get started by defining a workload. As we talked about terminology, workload is something which I prefer as an application. Think of it that it is an application. So let's say I want to define a workload, and that workload is for my finance application which I am running, my finance application, and let me call it BeSA finance application, right? I would give some description. It is just a text information so that I can relate to this when there are multiple workload I am using. I may want to perform some ownership information too. So let's say Ash and Kapil both are responsible for this particular application. So I have put this information here, and then I could say which environment it belongs to. Does it belong to production or pre-production? It does not affect your outcome, but it affects that how you prioritize them or those type of things. So I could put production. I could say, is it running in a region? Again, these are all optional. So let's say I'm running this into Northern Virginia and I am running it into Hong Kong. So these are the two regions I selected. I may have an on-prem environment. Let's say this is also connected to my Amsterdam data center. So that is what I have selected here. I may be running it on a specific account ID. I could give this. This is for tracking purpose only, not having any impact on the outcome or the question which is being asked. If I have a ARN of the application, I could have provided it here. If I have architectural design, I could upload it here so that everything will be available at one single place for anyone who is performing the review. I could select an industry if I want to. Just in case we want to collect some data from your reviews, we could use this industry information. Am I going to use trusted advisor also? Jira is a new thing. You identified few issues. You want to sync them into a Jira account for tracking purposes. So that is a new addition here. And you can give us some tag so you could identify who this particular product belongs to or application belongs to. So that's what we would mean by a well architected framework. Now here we can create some profile. Profile's idea is that we can prioritize something. As I said, maybe in production your cost is not less priority and reliability is high priority, and that can be completely opposite for your QA environment. So you could put a profile that what are my priorities? Am I doing prioritization of security or cost or my performance? So I could create this profile, but it is optional. And now I could add custom lenses also. Somebody was asking lenses. So these lenses are giving you additional capabilities. Like we start with well architected framework, that is the base one. As you can see, it is always selected. And then I can add DevOps lens. Maybe I will have merger and acquisition done. I have serverless lens. You could have selected these common lenses which are available. And good part is these lenses are customizable, means you could create your own lenses. Let's say you identified a workload where you need to perform a lot of customization. So you could create a lens, distribute that lens throughout your AWS organization, and everyone can start performing review based on that lens which you created. So lenses are customizable. You could create your own lenses, should not be a problem. A lot of third parties have created it, and you can also create your own lenses. Once you are happy with what you want to review, now I have done a defining of workload. So now my workload has been defined. As you see, there is nothing technical information I have provided, and now I would be starting my review if I want to. I would have 57 questions to answer, and based on that, it will judge, it will provide me information whether I am on a high risk or I have some medium risk item in my environment. So this is what we will be seeing into the overall well architected tool. We will talk a little bit more, but hopefully this is clear and you get a better idea. Kapil, you want to add something?
This is exactly the things that we need to get used to. So when you are like in this stage, when you are running some workload, it's not about getting perfection, but try to use this tool, get familiar by yourself and understand. So once you answering the different question, right, you will get in a mindset to understand what are the different questions you will be asking yourself when you are going to design the production system or any system next time. So that's basically gives you a strength in constructing the mental model around that.
Makes sense. And this will also help you. Let's say you did a workload created today, architectural today, and somebody after 3 years is performing a review. Now they want to know that why this decision was made, what was the rationale behind that decision. So that type of thing also can be documented here based on the answers you provide. So why I implemented MFA, multi-factor authentication, why I selected encryption, you could go ahead and provide that information within tool so that we can capture for future, so that other people who perform reviews later or perform some analysis, they can look into those answers and then they will know why this decision was made particularly. So that's how it should work. All right, good. Now, just to give you some more idea, so what can happen now? I have 57 questions to answer and I don't expect a single person in my organization to know every answer. It may be possible that you may have to talk to different team, you may have to talk to partner sometime, and then you will be utilizing these things. Are these questions pre-configured? Yes, that is true, as you asked this question on the chat. So yes, these are the standard questions which we have asked to everyone, or every workload should go through these questions. And if you are looking for your own questions, that time you have option here for custom lenses. You could go ahead and create your own custom lens. You will need a JSON file to get started, and you can go ahead and configure your own question to be incorporated along with well architected. You could add your additional custom lenses. So that's the way you could keep on expanding, shouldn't be a problem at all. All right. Now, talking about a workload, let's say this was my finance application BeSA. I have not answered any questions, so obviously it is not able to identify anything. Now, if I go ahead and say, okay, I found a team who I'm going to review it with, I would start for performing a continuous review and I will continue reviewing on the well architected framework side. Now I would start answering some question. And the good thing is you have question here all categorized into the different pillars which we discussed about. So operational excellence, 11 questions, security, reliability, performance, and then cost, and then sustainability. All these are different questions which I would be going into. And these questions are not yes and no type of thing, that are you doing this, yes or no. No, they are more elaborative. So let's say one says, how do you determine what your priorities are? As a business, how you identify that should I fix this bug first, or should I go ahead and implement a performance improvement, or should I go ahead and perform log collection? So how your business decides what priorities are. So it is not just a technical question, it is also talking about how you actually operate within your business and how you move forward with decision making process. So it is well architected in the sense that it is covering not just technical aspect but all the operational tools, people, processes, everything is covered into this particular tool. Right, Kapil?
Yep.
Now, let's take some simple question. Let's say, let me take a security one. So how do you securely operate your workload? Now, it may happen that maybe this time I'm not performing a review of security at all. So I could say this question does not apply to this workload, or maybe I would use this at later phase. This is out of scope for current review. So you could be selective here and say, hey, you are asking this question, but this is not applying currently. I'm not performing a well architected review for security. I am only concerned right now on performance. So that gives you flexibility to select what your priorities are and then fine tune your request and question based on that. So you could have selected it. So here I could go ahead and say, okay, question is, how do you securely operate your workload? So what I do I separate my workload using AWS account? Maybe yes. So I would say selected yes. Have I secured my root user and account properties? Maybe I'm not sure what we mean by the properties here. So I could go ahead into info and then it will give me detail about what is expected from this particular thing. So this is not just asking a blank question. It gives you information and then helps you to identify what is the motivation for the question or any additional information which can help you to give a better workload suitability. So you could have selected all these things. And if you look here, we are not just giving you documentation, but these are linked for videos where you can go and understand much more informed decision on what exactly we are doing and why we are doing based on that. So that is how we can go ahead and utilize these type of things. Should not be a problem. So that's what we could go ahead and do. So this is what my question would look like. And if you look here, there are more elaborative question and then mark practices that don't apply to this workload. So maybe in this workload I have one single account, so it is not going to be applied for me. So why I selected it? Because this is a business priority, or it is architectural constraint that I cannot use multiple account. I have to be restricted on that. And why I made a decision, I could put that information here, and that would help others to understand why this decision was made. So it is a living document. It is not a one time done and dusted kind of a thing. It is a living document which you can revisit if the need comes out. And once I'm done with this, let's say answering this particular question, and I feel I'm okay with that particular answer, I could go ahead and save my progress. So whatever I have done so far, I could go ahead and say, okay, I'm done. I have performed the review. I have selected some option, and now I want to save this thing and exit. So maybe I recorded a milestone here that I answered all security question, and later I could go ahead and perform review with another team and move forward from there. And it highlighted that based on the one question I answered, there is a high risk item which I am going into. And what is that high risk item? It will highlight me that this is my high risk item, that how do you securely operate into cloud? I am not doing that, and these are the recommendation to improve on that. So it is not an audit. Audits mostly say whether you are following something, yes or no. That is a black and white decision comes out of audit. But well architected reviews will give you more ways to improve that, rather than saying you are compliant or non-compliant. This will say, hey, you are here and you could improve your architecture and reach to up to this point, and these are the documentation to help you out with these type of things. So that is the main difference between an audit and a well architected framework. Great. Anything you want to add on the tool, Kapil?
Just like we have the possibility that you can export this report, share with
Exactly.
your leadership if required. And also, as Ashish mentioned, it's not something that one-time thing. You'll keep doing it from the very planning phase. You iterate through this. Once you have the input from your security team or the technical project architects or other stakeholders, you keep improving this. And maybe once you are going live, you can share this report and get more confident on the release.
Yeah, makes sense. And there's a question from DigiBoth. Is there any particular team or member from each team would evaluate well architected framework question here? So it depends, DigiBoth. I would put it like that. In some companies I have seen, they have a completely different team who is involved into this review process. So their architecture who are just performing reviews of any workload you submit, or if it is a small scale company, or if not well defined processes, then maybe individual can start. But it is very common that a full team or maybe important member of a team would be asked to perform this review along with you. You may select somebody as a lead for the review, and then he or she would call in different persons when the need be. So that is how it should be rolled out. It cannot be one single person's decision making all the way, because he or she may not know everything about application, and they may want to have more discussion with other team members before they come to a conclusion. So it depends. Probably a lead, and leading it through a single person and then involving multiple people would be more successful, but it depends. Right. Now, moving little further, let me bring up the slide deck again. I have closed it, but I'll start it again. Give me a minute, and we will then see that what are the different pillars associated. And maybe we want to talk a little bit here, Kapil, if you want to explain what we mean by learn, measure, and improve. What was the motivation for this particular topic?
Yeah, so basically, as we are like learning a lot and try to give the narrative that how well architected frameworks supposed to use. So it comes like we need to work in a circle. So cloud is new for certain organization, they are new to adopt, and maybe you are well versed into the AWS technology, but they are keep getting updated by day to day. So you need to keep learning yourself and be proficient in those tools and technologies. How you will understand that what you have learned and how to implement, then you will be measuring the success of your workload on the different KPIs, and then try to improve. One of the example I'll take that if you have built like the 3-tier application that you shown earlier, you have the database layer, you have the compute layer, and like API gateway or the load balancer layer, and your consumers. Then you want to see that how can you improve this further. Is your kind of have you done kind of private subnet, public subnet. You have different availability zones for your databases. How about your compute instances? Are they have different? Are they isolations of the failures? How, if some server goes down, how your load balancer is going to react? So you are going to learn over the time and measure those things and implement those things further. Some things, like for example, if you have something like you have tiled coupled architecture, you have databases and you have the compute layer. Maybe at the time you learn that your workload require distributed computing, and you want to break that architecture and putting something the queue in a between, and then consumer and producer with that. So those kind of, it's just an example. You will be learning by yourself and try to improve your system over the time.
Yeah, so it's a continuous improvement and continuous learning type of approach. So you learn about best practices, you measure are you following those best practices or not, and if you are not, you improve it. And best practices, as I said, is a evolving thing. It is not a static thing. So maybe today the best practice is X, but tomorrow it could be Y. So this process would keep on functioning like this. So you would keep on moving forward and then coming back and then start the learn process again. So this is how mostly it would be moved forward with. All right, good. Let's keep moving forward, and we will now go into a specific pillar which we are starting with operational excellence, and then we will discuss more pillars as the time permits.
Yeah. So again, I'll quickly give the what we mean by operational excellence. Operational excellence is pillar focus on the running and monitoring the systems and continually improvement the process and procedure. The key topics that we are going to discuss in this is automation, how we are going to respond to the events, and how we are going to like define different standards to monitor those daily operations. We have, how we are going to discuss this is we will understand the operational excellence by definitions, and then we are going to understand the key designs principle for operational excellence. Can you move to the slide, or if you have something to add, Ashish?
Yeah. So this is like, am I operating efficiently? Let's say I have been given a task and I finish it into 1 hour. Obviously, this could be an outcome which I am achieving, but can I finish that task in 59 minutes? Can I improve it for 58 minutes? Just giving an example. So it is a operational excellence that we are all trying to be excellent, and it is a way of improving what we are currently doing. And how to do that, what things we can perform as part of operational excellence, that is what we refer as design principle. So principle are the guiding lights. This can be implemented in different manner. You could decide to perform an operation as a code by CloudFormation or Terraform. The tool can be varied, but these are the common design principles which are there. Now, I also want to address a question from Abhijit which says, do all cloud providers have such a tool? I think yes, most of them would follow the same thing. So I believe every cloud provider has these similar type of tool. Maybe the terminology or the wording could be different, but the base principle would always would remain same. So it is like a guiding light which everyone should be following regardless of cloud provider or companies. You want to elaborate these points, Kapil, one by one?
Yeah. Before going that, I just wanted to give the example how to relate to operational excellence is like, for example, you do certain activity, either you play the badminton, you do the running. So you improve on this by measuring that how much time it is taking you to run a kilometer. Then you do regularly, and then you try to optimize. How can you do the same thing within a 5 minute, within 3 minute, or within a 2 minute? And how can, and you try out different things. You sometimes try out like warming up first, or you change the different shoes, or you learn different tactics. So that's how you learn and measure and improve. So that's what the operational excellence mean. If we talk about specific how you are, what are the design principle on the basically operational excellence is boiled down to perform operation as a code. You should be in the mindset that you don't do anything with the keyboard, hands off. You should be doing everything with infrastructure as a code. And either it's just spinning up the infrastructure, or also if you are performing some operational task, for example, you are the patching the servers or anything, it should be automated end to end. So, and for that, you can use the CloudFormation template or any other infrastructure management tools. Then and this is not new to any AWS, but it's a general DevOps principle that you should be focusing on making as small as possible, releases should be very minimal, and so that they are small, easy to understand, and if times required, it can be easily reversible. So the focus on the agile or DevOps in general is like do the releases in very small increments. If we talk about the another thing is like refine your operational and procedures. So that's again like review your processes and try to optimize the process. For example, I'll give you example. So if you today, if you build a feature, you do the test, it went through the build and deployment phase, and you release it, and something is found by your end user, something is not working properly, then they will file a bug, support engineer will look it, they will create a ticket for development team will prioritize it and then fix it. So basically that leads time can cost you a lot. Try to improve the process in such a way that these kind of issues can be found by the developer himself, if not developer then for sure tester. So you should be emphasizing on simplifying or shorten the feedback loop. So that's basically what we mean by improving the processes and refine the operational procedure. And then let's talk about the anticipate failure. So whenever you have your architecture, put down your architecture and try to break everything. Think that if something can break, it definitely will fail. So try to work backwards and try to see that what are the alternates you can build. How can you be more reliable in that per se? How can you build the alternate system that can, if something goes fail, how can system be still performing the function that is supposed to? And then the last one is probably is you will be learning and documenting all these things. So probably you are thinking building your own well-architected framework down the line and sharing your with your team. This is what happened, this is what we learned, this is how we rectified, and this is what you should be doing going forward. So you will have your small run book or handbook for your organization to deal with the failures. It can be like within a team, you all have the SOPs built for running something and working on certain issues, and then that particular teamwork can go to your organization level or industry level or going forward with others. That's what the Netflix white paper does, right? They are implementing those things within themselves, and then that is getting popular within industry. So that's basically the design principle that I wanted to emphasize on. Anything you want to add here in this?
Yeah, means I want to give a contextual information here. So these are theoretical concept, and now sometimes some people feel that, okay, I understand it, how I implement it. Can you give me some more technical examples? So I'll pull up some technical example to give you. So here is a simple example of performing things as code, perform operation as a code. Probably you have heard about Systems Manager. Systems Manager is a tool which can help you in performing lot of automation for regular tasks. So let's say on my instances I have to install a software, or I have to perform an upgrade of something, or I have to perform an inventory collection. I don't want my admin to manually go and perform all these operations, because we humans are prone to errors which we can always create or commit. So we don't want these things to be manually done. What if I can write a document which is basically a script within Systems Manager, and then on maintenance window when we are putting our machines into, we could run the script and get the information or perform patches on that, or maybe upgrade our Java component on that, or create an inventory list of whatever is running. So that helps me in automating as much as I can, and I would have a consistent output coming always. If I am collecting inventory from a machine, I may do it differently than you or someone else. We want a consistency to be applied into all these processes and improve efficiency. That is what operational excellence is. So I could perform all my operation through Systems Manager. Let's say it is an EC2 instance. So that can be a good way to get started. Now, your architecture can be different. You may not use System Manager at all. You may use third-party tool, or you are not using instance at all. You may use container. But the process is that you should be performing and doing lot of things automation rather than doing things manually. Manual things are never going to be as efficient as automated things. So just be aware about that. Second is, as Kapil was mentioning, make frequent or small or reversible changes. What we mean by that? So if you are deploying things manually and then you go ahead and then remove things manually if it doesn't work out, that is not a very scalable process. So let's say here an example, we have used AWS code pipeline which is a way of automating my stuff. So I have come up with a new version of my code. I committed it. Through that, build process happened, code deploy happened, that got deployed into my instances, but then I realized it is not going to work as expected. I would have option, as I have done everything into automated fashion. I could perform a revert of my pipeline, or version 2 deployed, it didn't work out, I could push again my version 1, and now my machine will again start with version 1 of my application. So this type of automation would help you to improve your application to a great extent. So make frequent, small and reversible changes. What we mean by this thing here also is release faster. If I give example of Amazon.com, initially Amazon.com was an entity who was releasing softwares, or every 3 months we had update going on to Amazon.com. So this was our release cycle, and we had to have around 8 to 10 hours of downtime when these releases were happening. So that was not at all a good thing. Now if I talk about, we are ensuring that, last I checked, this was every 90 second. Every 90 second there is some changes happening on Amazon code base, and then everything is happening without any downtime. So we obviously improved so that we could deliver performance at scale and without any interruption. So make changes in an automated fashion. Small changes, you have 10,000 changes to be deployed, and now one of the change breaked things. Now you have to identify which particular change it was. If you had deployed them into batches of 20, it would be much easier for you to troubleshoot and identify where thing has got broken, and you can start fixing from there. So make sure you make frequent, small and reversible changes. Another thing we discussed was refine operational procedure frequently. Whatever I am doing today may not be the best practice for tomorrow. Single example. So if we have come up from on-prem world, probably everyone knows that to fix something on a server or install something, we do perform SSH. We can perform SSH also on my instances also. But that would mean I have to keep port number 22 open for the wide world. Then I would have logs collected locally, and I would have no visibility on what everyone is doing within my instance. So that is a complicated thing. Rather than that, if I could use systems manager service called session manager, I would be able to track every single session originating from my environment, and I would be able to track when this admin logged in, what he or she performed on my instance. So that would give me a better visibility. So what I did, I followed this approach initially, but then I found a better way, and I implemented that solution to ensure we can manage things in a more efficient manner. So that is how we can perform efficiency. And as we said, everything fails all the time. That is Werner Vogel. I am quoting here, Amazon CTO. So we need to anticipate that things can fail, and that's why we create a multi-AZ database, right? Primary fail, standby can take over. We created an auto scaling group across availability zone. As you can see, we started using managed services. We started keeping workloads separately or into different subnet. So this is all helping me to ensure that I am anticipating failure. This could be anticipation of a component failure, or it could be the whole application failure, or a section of the application failure. So we need to understand all these things better through anticipating failure. And the last point in operational excellence is about learning from operational failure. So this is a continuous process. Maybe we had a DDoS attack today. Now, how we fixed it, why it originated, what were our learning from that, who helped us, what process we invoked, how we could improve. We should document it. You have 10 team, and 10 teams definitely are handling DDoS attack when it happens. Everyone may be efficient, may not be efficient. That doesn't make you successful as a company. So what we should do, once something broken down, intentional, unintentional, no problem. Let's go ahead and perform a postmortem. Let's document that thing into a wiki. Now, wiki we are just using here. Your method of documenting can be very different. You may use into a version control system. You may put into a web page or an email, whatever. But that should be shared with other teams too, so that they can improve upon it, rather than that being a tribal knowledge which only few people know into your organization. It could be spread and shared with multiple teams, so they will not be wasting time when these things happen, or at least they learn from the failure, right? So you don't have to get into fire to see it is hot or not, right? If somebody has already seen it, you have to believe it, or you have to trust it. Same thing here. If somebody has documented a best practice to mitigate a DDoS attack, or mitigate a man in the middle attack, you could just all learn from that, and that will make sense if you start documenting things and sharing with your internal team. right? So that's what we mean by operational excellence as a pillar. Anything you want to add, Kapil?
I just wanted to understand how many of you learning this first time or hearing this first time, these concept, and how many of you thinks that it is worth diving deep into. Okay, while we wait for the responses, I just wanted to quickly, basically, we have given the design principles and you have covered briefly that how we are going to implement this in a real time. I'll quickly give few commentary on the best practices, and there is like no brainer. It can all tie together into the things that you have just explained. So, for example, when we talk about for example, perform operation as a code or doing anything like make small changes or anything. So not every company is tech by birth. Not everyone is Amazon. Not everyone is in Netflix. So maybe technology is the second part of their organization. They are running a bank and making sure that their money getting transferred is the main job. So you need to understand the organization priorities. Maybe the current flow, how the money is getting transferred from account A to B, is more important than building a new feature against that. So you need to understand the organization priorities, evaluate needs and the requirements, understand the threats, and then you need to work backwards to minimize those risk. And one of the example that Asi shown is minimizing the risk means you are removing the human intervention and try to do everything as infrastructure as a code, implementing the CI/CD pipelines and other improvement the processes. Then another thing that you need to think is building the culture. Here we are talking about building the culture is like you need, when something goes wrong, you need to build the culture to do the blameless postmortem, understand and have the mental model that okay, things will fail and you are working backwards, try to put the procedure around and make sure if something fails, then how you are dealing with the next time. It's not a people mistake, it's process mistake. You need to build the culture to have the transparent communication and how to handle the escalation and other things. So that's about understanding the organization, and that's the first best practice while you are dealing with the operational excellence. Then you need to prepare for it. You need to understand what is your workload. What are the, when I'm saying that understanding the workload means like understanding the application, how many users you have, what are the dependency, what are the transactions. So you have solid understanding in order to prepare for anything. And then you are reducing and remediating all the things and improving through the CI/CD pipeline, automation, build and deploy. And also for like how you understand that you are ready and you are prepared, then you are evaluating your readiness by the run book, playbooks, and making the informed decision based on that. Once you understood the organization, you understood the preparation part, and then you are going to do in operational mode. So you will be define what is your goal, how to capture the metrics, how you are analyzing it, and in terms of the event, how you are reacting to that. So that's basically how you are dealing and operating in the real time when something happens. And then the last one in this is evolving from there. How, what if you have like done, you create a plan, you improve it, you done the operational things that needs to be done, and then what you are learning and how you are continuously improving on that, what process improvement you made, what are the post-mortem analysis you did, and how those post-mortem analysis outcomes coming into the picture and implementing something. Are those process implement, are those people in, or are the tools and tooling improvement? You need to think that okay, if I have missed something and it took 10-minute time or 15-minute time just to found a bug, then probably you need to work backwards and see that how you should be collecting the log and setting up the alerts. If you find the alerts on time, then what are the procedure you are taking? It was the manual fix or it was the automated fix. If it was manual fix, then what you can do this to automate going forward. So let's less human intervention and everything should work automated way. Then you need to much improve with the time, the process, the tooling, and the people, everything.
Makes sense. And based on this best practices, I just want to quote something I read on LinkedIn recently, and it is from an Amazon engineer. So that engineer, in the very first few weeks of his joining, her joining, they did something, and that has broken a production server. Right, so this person made a mistake, obviously unintentionally, and that has broken down the system. Then later that person had a one-on-one with his or her manager, and now this person was fearing that, okay, I'm going to get a lot of heat because what I did wrong. But that manager didn't talk at all about that. We discussed all these things, and this employee then said that, okay, I made this mistake and I would be very careful from that. So manager says that, okay, that's fine, mistakes can happen, but it is our mistake also as a process. It should not be that easy to break a production server, right? Because that was a failure from the internal side, that we have not put checks and balances in place, that anyone can deploy and anything can fail on production. So it is a evolving process. We are not doing a blame game that somebody X has done this or Y has done that. Mistake happened. Probably it was not a bad intention, but how we can improve from there and move forward from there. So that's how you should keep on moving forward from there. So hopefully that gives you some more idea. Yeah, mistakes always happen. Friday always, right? I agree on that. So yeah, Fridays are notoriously known for mistakes, and then we realize that person is already flying to Vegas or enjoying time here, there and there, and then it's very hard to find out that person who made mistake. And how to improve that, we'll discuss that. We'll talk about change management so that you can track what has changed, who approved it, and how we could go ahead and then collectively work so that these mistakes are not repeated, right? So mistakes happen, that is genuine, nobody goes without a mistake, but idea is to learn from it and then keep on improving on whatever you have implemented or designed. Let's keep moving forward here too. So some key services which you may go into are these, and Kapil would try and probably explain more on that. Yeah.
No. I just wanted to come back to the question that I asked. I purposefully asked the question that if you find this topic interested, then I think whatever we are discussing is not about the AWS. It's general about how you manage your operation, how you are doing the DevOps together. So for that, I have a nice recommendation. Go on the LinkedIn and search for two folks. That is James Wickett and Ernest Muller, and I will send the link also in the chat. They have excellent commentary on how to manage these DevOps challenges, and you must have a good watch on that. That's my recommendation. It's not paid. It's just my worth, my experience. I have learned a lot, so I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sorry, Ashish, please go on. Yeah.
And these are some services which can help you in operating in this manner, right? So it is not an exhaustive list, but automation can be done through CloudFormation. You may use Terraform, you may use some third-party services. If you have to perform some repeated tasks, System Manager is a good choice for that. If you want to monitor what is happening, who did what, when it happened, then EventBridge and CloudWatch Event can be useful. Trusted advisor can perform lot of checks and balances, by which you should be able to understand what all are the best practices to follow and where the challenges are. So these are just some recommendation, but this is not an exhaustive list of everything into AWS, but these are just some key services to get started. So we covered first lens here, which is well architected operational excellence, and probably based on that, I would have introduced in my standard application now at least two things. Maybe I started things through Systems Manager. I am performing regular update on my web server or applying a patch on my database through my Systems Manager as a service. That is a good option. System Manager is a really nice service to use in multiple situations. So it works on a concept of an agent. You would have an agent installed. Once the agent is installed, it would start reporting and as a managed server, and then from System Manager you could run multiple automation document like collect inventory, update, patch, perform some operation on an automated manner, and now you would have a way to perform tracking also. So there is a lot of feature of System Manager which can help you in becoming more operationally excellent in your day-to-day work. And obviously CloudWatch, which will help you with your operational insight, how you're operating, where things are breaking, what kind of metrics we are collecting, so that all can happen. So at least these two services would start giving you visibility about your operations, and then you can keep on improving those particular things. So that is the first pillar we covered, which is operational excellence. All right.
Yeah. So just to add few things here. So we have keep it very minimal. We cannot, like, we have learned the services, so we don't want to discuss much on that. But think about holistic approach, that how you are monitoring things, how you are finding the like loopholes that what can break, how you are doing the automation around it, like with the system manager, you are setting up the CloudWatch alarms and notifying your Lambda function to take some actions. So think about holistic, that how you are building the full automation that your system can run without any hands-on the keyword work.
Great. Now let's focus on the next track or next pillar of AWS security. So let's go ahead and talk about security in general, and then we'll see some implementation in AWS that how you could keep on improving your architecture for security.
Yeah, I think it's most sometimes left out pillar, but I think most important pillar. And again, it's depend on which kind of organization you work and how they treat the security. But I don't think so anybody take the security nowadays lightly, because that's a dent on your organization for longer period. So security focus on the protecting information and system. The key topics include around the confidentiality and integrity of the data. You need to tag that what kind of data you are dealing with. Then managing the user permission, establish the control to detect the security events and take the precautionary measurement and take the action on that. Some of the design principle that we have when we talk about the security pillars is, can you move to the next slide, Assis?
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah. So we have the design principle. For example, we need to, when we are thinking about security, we need to think about the implementing a strong foundation of the IAM first, a strong identity foundation. And that's talk about mostly the least privilege, separation of duties, and identity management must be a centralized place. And you should be not dealing with the long-term credential, eliminate as much as possible, and static credentials. So that's the basically well-known things that you shouldn't be doing, but people do more often than not. So try to adhere to these principles. Try to have the separation of duty. If there is an audit team, they might don't want to have a kind of access to perform any operation on EC2 instances. And if they are kind of database management, then probably they don't want to have access to anything else that they probably don't need. So having the concept in the least privilege, separation of duties, centralized at one place all the IAM roles and configuration, and eliminate long-term credentials. And if you have, then try to rotate more often than not. Then also, the second principle that I wanted to touch base in this is enable traceability. What that means is, like when it comes to traceability, is like not only the monitoring. There is a three things, like you have very good mechanism to collect the your monitoring logs and metrics. You are monitoring them well. Then you have setting up alerts and notification to take automatic actions, and also like you have proper auditing mechanisms in place, so that you are automatic investigating that what's happening and what are the action you need to take. So monitoring and alerting is complete package of your traceability. Then when it comes to implementing the security, right, it's about all together in all layers of your application. Think from the customer perspective, how they are interacting with your system. They are reaching out to which component, API gateway or the load balancer. How can you secure that? How can we make sure that you are only receiving HTTPS traffic, not HTTP traffic? Are you ready for the DDoS attacks? So from the very end user, try to evaluate each component from the API gateway to application layer to the database, and make sure that you have covered every loopholes. So HTTPS traffic enabled, then you are doing a WAF and DDoS protection. Then for the databases, you have credentials secured and nobody is reading from the plain text file. It's all secret, that is encrypted. So you need to think holistically. Security at all layers, in-depth defense. Then we have some like, and try to automate as much as possible. All the things that you are trying to think of and you can think of, try to automate that. Then it comes to like protecting the data. Then we were talking about, think about the classification, that it's a public thing or it's internal or confidential, and try to build the mechanism and what are the process to encrypt or having the password protected or the public documentation, how you want to surface those. Think about the encryption, access control, tokenization, those things. And then try to think of like keeping the human intervention and away from the data, have the limited access, no manual processes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Makes sense.
basically it. It is that I wanted to cover majorly in terms of the best practices. You want to add anything?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
I
One more
it's
thing, protecting the data at the rest and transit. So it's basically think about what are the places your data breach can happen. Like, for example, data resides at some storage, either it's databases, S3 or whatsoever, and how it's traveling from one place to another, one component to another. So try to have HTTPS enabled communications and try to encrypt the data wherever you are storing it.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yep. And there is a question from Pradeep. Can AWS monitoring tool monitor from different places? Yes, that's true. There are some limitation, but you could use CloudWatch agent, and through that CloudWatch agent, you can build a holistic view of everything, whether on-prem or other cloud provider, and then we can have one thing into a dashboard. So yes, that can happen. So that is true. And let me give some more example on what Kapil has talked about in a technical context, that how we go ahead and ensure that we are providing better security to our application. Let's go ahead and talk about that. So we already discussed that we need to implement a strong identity foundation. What we mean by that could be things like we can use IAM, we could use other services in our environment like IAM, directory services, Cognito, that helps me to understand who is logging into my account and what operations they are performing. So at least the identity part would be there taken care by my services like organization, resource access manager. I would be able to take care of that. Another example here is, don't overcrowd your workload into one single account. Let's see this example. So I have one AWS account, and within that one account I have running my analytics workload, I have my applications running, I have my capital market VPC transaction also being processed there, different bucket where data is there, different teams are there, different type of users are there. That is not at all a good practice in terms of security. We are not having any separation, or we have done overcrowding, or what we call ambiguous boundary, which we have created here for our workload. Rather than that, if I go with this multi-account architecture where I have one single application deployment happening in one account, which is purely for my analytical workload, second account I have created only for my production application, third account which I am using only for logging, and maybe fourth account where I am keeping my transaction processing, where contractor also need access, completely separate. So what I achieved here is a separation of duty, and now I am able to perform a much better approach towards security. Even if one of my account get compromised, I could retain that blast within that small radius, and it would not affect other account in my environment. If I have everything in one account, then it is not going to help me at all in that particular case. Enable traceability, as we talked about, who did what. Like, we can use different services for that. So some services in terms of security auditing or detective controls, as we call them, you could use security hub, you could perform guard duty, and you can have inspector for vulnerability assessment. CloudWatch is obviously useful. Config will help you with your compliance and then changes. CloudTrail will capture whatever happened. VPC flow log will give you information about your network traffic. So these are just some services which you could have start implementing within your environment. Shouldn't be an issue. Detective controls can be implemented. As we discussed, apply security at all layers. Just taking a simple example of a 3-tier app. So first thing, we can create network layers, right? So see this example like we were mentioning, we could say, let's start with our Route 53 protection first. So this is, once I'm using managed service, I'm protected from any type of DNS spoofing. Then I can use CloudFront. I can perform a lot of Shield and WAF integration with CloudFront. So I would be able to protect as much of the attack as near to they occur. And even afterwards, if they come to my VPC, I'm not giving access to everything within my VPC. I could go ahead and say, okay, I would have different subnets. As we see here, I have one subnet which is only for application load balancer. Second is for egress only, which is a shared subnet. Third, I have for my private, where I am running my net and maybe my Lambda function. And then I have a private subnet where I am running my databases. So that can also be a way of improving security. And across these layers, I would be controlling network traffic. I would have route table, I would have network ACL, I have a configured security group, and only required traffic can come into. Not everyone would be allowed to come into my environment. So this is how I would keep on performing layered approach of security. So idea is, majority of the attack would be handled here. If something is not handled there, then I have further available resources to help me with the integration and help me with security. So idea is, implement security as not as a single layer, but in multiple layers, and in every layer we have to perform encryption security. Like here we have security group, maybe we have enabled encryption also on top of that. Maybe here we have created some of the IP address based filtering and all. So those type of things can happen if I need for my application. So that can be all possible, right? So that's what can be done for best practices for infrastructure. Automate security best practices. Anything which we are discussing it to be done in manual way is always complicated. Be aware that you do not want to do everything manually. It is inefficient, it is error prone, it is not highly scalable, everything inconsistent, and often we are reacting when we are using a manual approach. Attack happened, let me go ahead and create a firewall rule right now. That doesn't work well in most situations. So what we want, we detected IP address creating a problem, let's automate it and let it go ahead and be added into the block list of IPs in an automated fashion. That's what we are looking for. So that is something we should be looking for. Also, you need to perform continuous automated auditing. So we now started calling DevSecOps, where security is also implemented as a code. It is not bolted upon, but it is built in into everything we are doing. Then we can perform continuous detection through EC2 inspector, Amazon EC2 inspector. Amazon Messi can help you with your data breaches. Trusted advisor, config rule, guard duty. So a lot of technical solutions exist to implement and augment your security layer at different aspect. And if I'm talking about data protection in transit and rest, I could use Amazon Messi to identify classified data, KMS service, Cloud HSM, certificate manager, server-side encryption. They will help me in incorporating security at every layer and protect my data while it is in transit or while it is stored into a storage service. Should not be a problem at all. Another component is to keep people away from data. Let me give a simple example here just so that you could look into. So let's say I have a S3 bucket, and in that S3 bucket I have some data. Let's say consider this is my purchase information for the user. Now I have some people whom I want to give that access to the data. One option for me is I could give them access to the whole bucket. That I am opening up a very wide door for them to access my data from. Instead of that, what I could do, I could have this S3 bucket and its information I can, let's say, get into my Amazon Athena as a service, or I could get this data into my quick site as a service, and then I give them access only to these quick site or Athena as a service. So what they can do now, they cannot change anything on my S3, but they can perform SQL queries on that data. So that would make my life easier. I can give the dashboard, and from that dashboard they can go ahead and look at this data but not make any modification on that data. So what I did, I kept people away from data rather than giving them direct access. I have incorporated other services in between who would help me in ensuring that my people are not required to access data directly. It may intentionally, unintentionally create problem for me. So better is to keep them as separate as possible, as we see here. So that is one example. Taking that example further into a different aspect, let's go ahead and see this. So maybe I have my documents stored into a DocumentDB database. Let's say these are all my important documents, and I don't want people to be given access directly to the document. I have created a Lambda function. Based on the request from a ticketing application, it would go get data from it, log this information into DynamoDB that who requested it, and then afterwards we could go ahead and utilize a PDF creation tool and give that people access only to the required PDF, not giving access to the whole database altogether. So as much as you can create a boundary between people and data, your data would be much safer in that particular case. So you could add these type of things if the need be. Right. Could we have S3 bucket read only? Yes, you could do that. Should not be a problem. That is also possible. So there are multiple ways. See, the intention is different, or what we want to achieve is security at all layer and encryption. How we implement it, it can depend from different and various services. Should not be a problem at all. So this is what we have. Now, one more thing, prepare for security event. Things can happen, things can go bad, and we want to be not just reactive but proactive about it. And the services which can help you in that case is config, can then be Lambda function, can be Amazon Detective. That would give you a good way to get started and get the most out of your application architecture. So that we could achieve from these type of options. That is what we could do. And then these are all the information which I wanted to talk about security. So I hope you got a better understanding on how these security related concepts actually work out into AWS environment. It is just an overview. Implementation can vary from your environment to environment, from your application to application. Kapil, you want to add something?
No, that's it. I wanted to add something. I want to play Ashish's role, and we are almost time today. No, it's a
Okay,
good
great.
discussion, and I think you covered mostly part in terms of the practical implementation, how you are thinking in your architecture, implementing different best practices. So yeah, I think good to have this.
That makes sense. And just some services which can help you with your security posture. IAM is obviously evergreen and ever present. KMS, Messi, Inspector, WAF, Shield, Security Group, Network, ACL. But yeah, the list goes on, and you would find there are so many security services available. So make sure you leverage it. I don't expect that you become master in one day for everything, but you start thinking from a broader scale, a holistic scale, and then you can keep on improving your architecture. Should not be a problem. So we covered 2 pillars so far in well architected. We have 4 more remaining. So we would be discussing them into the next session, and hopefully you would enjoy and learn more. Any feedback you have, keep them coming. We should be able to incorporate it. I agree that time up, yes, we just started. I agree, but yeah, we all have our own commitment, and 90 minutes is a good enough time. So I hopefully think you are all enjoying. So we will connect back into the next session. Let me add Prasad to the stage, and if you have any questions, any doubts afterward, feel free to share. We would be happy to answer as much as we can, and these slides would be made available to you so that you can go and dive deep, and links which Kapil talked about, we'll also share them into an email format. Right.
I have quickly 2 things to mention. One is can you bring back the slide last one that you have, Ashish?
The last one.
So last one. So if you are giving your associate exam, security group versus NACL is most important. WAF and SEAL, there will be one question for sure. Messi, one question for sure. And the KMS for sure. So all these topics that has been mentioned here, and IAM is no different. So these will be all be there. And just on the closing note, I think Pradeep asked the question, what is the reliability and the performance efficiency difference? I would give you very kind of real-time example. Think of the Leon Messi and the Ronaldo as your reliability. They are consistent hitting the goal and hitting from the longer period of time. So that's basically reliability, that you are performing certain tasks and you can do it for the longer period of time. So that's basically your reliability. And when it comes to performance efficiency, take the example of any athlete. Take the example of the Virat Kohli from 2014 to 2024, how he has been evolved, how he has improved in terms of his physical capacity, in terms of adoption of the new things. So any sports person, how he has transformed over the time, that's a great example of thinking about the performance efficiency.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Great way of
That's
explaining
it.
it. Yeah, good. Thank you.
So Ashish, now it's Sangati ka asar. How do you call it in English? Everyone now starts using
Yeah,
analogies.
means changing the color, isn't it? I
Yeah.
get it. So that is good. Yeah, means that is how we all learn. So yeah, analogies I feel is a great way to connect, and then you could relate it and when we talk about it. So that is a good thing. Thank you so much, Kapil. And yeah, means hopefully
It's
everyone
all
has
about
enjoyed and learned something.
you can this stay longer in your mind. Like
Agree.
if you ask people, like even those who are longer period in IT, what is the reliability, what is kind of performance efficiency, sometimes it's not to explain with examples, but if you relate with the analogies, then it's easier to explain.
Makes sense. Agree.
Cool. Thank you everyone for joining, and great session, Ashish and Kapil. I loved it.
Yep, makes
Thank you
sense.
for taking
And
all
we
the
will be
questions
waiting for you on
single-handedly.
Discord. So if you have anything to share, anything to put on Discord, that is a great way. So we are sharing examples there, exam questions there, and we are trying to create a discussion forum so that you could learn from those answers and then make sure that you are getting the most out of technology. So make sure you join Discord channel, and if you like something in session, feel free to share it across the social media platform, so other people would also get benefited and would learn about technology in the simplest and easiest manner possible.
And we
Yeah,
also want to, sorry,
Go ahead.
Prashad, go on, please.
no, go ahead, Kapil. I'll go out
No,
later.
I was just saying that we are also trying to do the performance efficiency. So any kind of improvement, good thing is good thing for sure. But if there is any things that you can see we can improve in terms of optimize your best use of your time, something that we can provide more, that we are happy to learn and improve.
Yeah. And at the start of the session, Ritu mentioned that she would like to evangelize in Instagram. Please feel free to do it. And in case anyone has any ideas of how we can evangelize BeSA more, feel free to let us know. Like me, Ashish, and most of the folks in BeSA, we are only on LinkedIn, so we keep sharing on LinkedIn, not other platforms. But in case if you're active on other platforms, please feel free to spread the word. It will be more
Yeah,
than
any
helpful for
idea you
everyone.
have which can help a broader community, that is what community building is. So
Yeah.
just feel free to share ideas. You want to send something over Discord or LinkedIn, we are open to discussion, and we started a thread on Discord which is about feedback for the BESA session. We will start that. So we would start that thread and you could put in your information so that we could make that much better for you into the coming days. Thank you so much. Have a good week, everyone, and we will talk to you next week. We'll continue the discussion on well architected. Thank you so much.